Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining me. I am Chris Peel, steel writer and creator of Some Big Lumberjack for Half-Ass Publishing. Thanks for joining me today. So, I just want to do a little live stream to give a bit of an update on kind of where things are standing as far as the whole process is going for. Let me move this over here. For the whole process of the relaunch for the relaunch issue. So, I got to be honest, I have hit a bit of a wall as far as writing the issue goes. So, I've written probably about halfway through, and I'm procrastinating a bit. I have gotten to a stopping point, and I'm kind of kicking around the idea of, that's it for the first issue. And then, finish it up in a second issue, but I'm really thinking the best way to go is just one self-contained issue instead of trying to do two parts, which is, like what we did with the Megalith issue. We just did one big one. So I'm still thinking that that's what I'm going to do for this one. And I just am using that as an excuse because I'm having a hard time finishing up this story. So that's that's where, having a writing partner for me anyways always came in handy, because if I hit these walls, I could just, call up my buddy and be like, "Hey, let's get together this Saturday and hash out the rest of this script." And we'd get together and just start throwing ideas and riffing, and next thing you know, we got a story 100%. But I don't have that this time, so I'm writing this whole thing on my own. And I'm just gonna have to stick it through, I guess. So probably this weekend I'll sit down if I have time. Work has been absolutely crazy. My day job, everybody's panicking, getting ready for spring, and trying to get things done early. So it's been kind of a disaster. Work's been kind of, I don't know, disaster, but it's been really, really crazy. I've had some really long days here this last week and a half. So that's kind of derailed me a bit from the writing process. And then, you got kids and they've got stuff going on the weekend. But I'm just going to have to make time this weekend and really sit down and just pound this thing out and finish. I really am. Now, with that being said, I'm actually quite happy with what I've got thus far. I've avoided some of the things that I originally wanted to do, which in hindsight I think is a good thing. And I definitely have a good first part of the story is pretty solid, I feel. Yeah, like I said, the last time I heard from Jeff, he was penciling the pages. He had gotten about 5 pages done, and with what I had written thus far, like I said, it's about half the story. He says it's looking like it's going to be about 16 pages. So if I get about the same amount for the second part of the story, then we're looking at a 30-something page comic just for the story alone. And of course, I want to throw some stuff in there like sketches that we hadn't released before that we had gotten, things like that. So yeah, it's just tough, man. It's when you hit these walls, with writing, writer's block stuff. I found it very difficult to get past it if it's something I'm doing on my own. And in the past, I would just stop and go on to something else, whether it's writing a new story or just stop writing at that point. But excuse me. Trying not to cough on the mic here, clear my throat. Yeah, so I'm gonna really do my best. I just got to sit down and do it and just get it done. Maybe I should like outline it out or something, because usually when I write, I'm just kind of writing on the fly, and I course correct several times during when I'm writing it. Kind of my whole writing process is probably, I guess, pretty different than most. Like I've been watching Gateway into Comics. He's got some great videos on there about, outlining your stories and, coming up with character histories and everything like that to really flesh out your characters. I've, just had like, oh, okay, here's character A, right? That I like, and I like this about him and this about him or her or whoever. And then I'll just start writing. I'll have a general idea of what I want the story to be, and I'll start writing, and it'll change several times. Like for instance, this one's changed quite a bit. So, originally I was going to have all this, kind of political type of commentary, overtly, right? Not very subtle, but after talking to my former writing partner and listening to some other folks, I kind of had second thoughts about it, decided not to go that route. But anyway, so yeah, my writing style's, probably not probably not the best as far as being efficient. I should probably look at some of these other guys and maybe try to prepare a little bit more detail, I guess, before going into it, and maybe I wouldn't kind of hit these roadblocks. But it usually works pretty well. But man, when I hit these walls, it's hard to get past it sometimes. But I'm just going to try to force it this weekend. I don't know if anybody got a chance to see. I did a video about going to the range. I finally got to the range, and I'm a big Second Amendment guy. I love guns, all kinds of guns. A lot of the guns I have are, let's see, a lot of the guns I have are like old Comblock guns, like Russian or Soviet Union guns. And honestly, not because it's something I was like seeking out or collecting, but I inherited a bunch of guns from my father-in-law after he passed away, and he had a few Comblock rifles in there. So it just kind of happened that way. But they're really a lot of fun to shoot, and a lot of times that ammo's pretty cheap. But anyway, so if that's something that you're interested in, you should check out that video. It was a lot of fun, and it's a longer video than usually. I try to keep the videos at around 5 minutes or so, but this one went about 15. And I talk about my Mosin. I have two Mosin Nagants, and I talked about my M9130 quite a bit. I went on a little bit about the history and everything like that, and some of the different variations of the 9130. Anyways, so if you like that kind of thing, definitely check it out. I was thinking of reading this. I came across a story that I wrote. Man, I think I wrote this about 16 years ago. And it's basically the story of how, it's a short story, and it's basically how Some Big Lumberjack got his name. It would definitely be considered very offensive by today's standards. Yeah. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. I don't know where that came from. Anyways, so yeah, so it would be considered pretty offensive by today's standards, especially with how sensitive everyone is. But I don't know. I'm thinking about reading it here. So maybe that's, I don't know. I mean, I don't think we're ever going to do anything with it. I guess maybe we do a short story for it in at the end in an issue. That's kind of like a little backstory or something, kind of in the back. I mean, it would only take a few pages. What the heck? Let's give it a shot here. So I'm going to read a little bit of this. Now, I was a huge still am huge Conan the Barbarian fan. I mean, to me, the only movie really that is any good is the very first one with Arnold Schwarzenegger and James Earl Jones. Great friggin' movie. Which then, of course, I watched all the other ones, the Conan the Destroyer, and then that kind of reboot with Jason Momoa. Oh, so bad. But and then of course I read the books. I read the books much later, or the stories. I don't know if you want to call them books, but the collected edition. I have a collected hardback of Conan that, of course, Robert E. Howard, the original author of Conan the Barbarian. So I've got those and read those and just fell in love with it. And I really saw how, I guess, I've talked to a lot of Conan like purists, I guess you could say, and they didn't like the Schwarzenegger movie. And I can see what they mean now after reading those, because the character is very different from the way it was portrayed. He was portrayed in that first Conan the Barbarian, but I still love that movie. That was my introduction to Conan the Barbarian, and I mean, it just doesn't get old for me. I really think that film holds up. Anyways, so I'm explaining that because some of this story is like a nod to Conan the Barbarian. Like, for instance, the opening, there's like a narrator, right? And this is I'll just kind of I'll read this opening, and I'll read the closing, and it'll give you kind of an idea excuse me, of where I was at this time, and maybe kind of an idea of how right wing I was taking, or how right wing my thoughts were on how I wanted to take this character. Between the time when the oceans drank communism and the rise of the sons of G. Gordon Liddy, there was an age undreamed of. And unto this, some big lumberjack, destined to bear the fuzzy bald knitcap of Aquilonia upon a troubled brow. It is I, his beaver, who alone can tell thee of his saga. Let me tell you of the days of high adventure. So anyways, that was the opening. A total take on the whole opening to Conan the Barbarian. And then at the end, I did similar. So Na is, of course, the one who's narrating this. And at the end of the story, so did some big lumberjack return the whalers to their job of whaling. And having no further concern, he and his companions sought adventures in the West. Many wars and feuds did some big lumberjack fight. Honor and fear were heaped upon his name, and in time, he became a Wendy's drive-thru attendant by his own hand. Anyways, that's... So kind of the idea I had behind this is I wanted to poke fun at, well, okay, the origin of Some Big Lumberjack. The original origin of Some Big Lumberjack was he and his parents were camping in the forests of Canada. He gets lost. He's found and raised by a wild pack of lumberjacks. And he's taught this mystical, magical, whatever, life of lumberjacking. And the Sierra Club, it was like this group, I think I mistakenly, in one video, I mistakenly referred to them as Scar. It was Spectre. Spectre was the group of Bond villains. And it was kind of my take on that, right? It was so, in Spectre, you had all these different villains who would kind of come together to try to, do whatever. So I had this, I didn't really have a name. I never really developed a name for him because we didn't really go in depth into his origin story, but it was that kind of organization, and it was made up of like Greenpeace, the Sierra Club, PETA. They all were like these banded together and were kind of these like eco-terrorists essentially. So this group, this organization, they hunted down and killed all of the wild lumberjacks. So he then becomes, and he takes what he learns and survives. He's the lone survivor of this wild lumberjack pack. And when he becomes a man, he enters into this lumberjack contest. He just kind of comes out of the woods in a flannel loincloth and enters into this lumberjack contest and wins first place, which first place is like $1 billion, which is ridiculous in and of itself. And he starts his own paper company and becomes this big paper mogul, and goes by the name of Douglas Fir. So that's kind of how he gets going. So originally his his main nemesis was going to be this organization comprised of multiple multiple eco whatever you want to call them. And so in this origin story of how he got his name, so what we have happening here is there's this humongous whaling ship, and it's manned by very flamboyant, what at the time was kind of stereotypical homosexual men, and they're the whalers. And they've got names like Lance and Julian and Bruce and all that, again, which was like stereotypes back then. And so these guys, these whalers, are hanging out, and they're like, "Oh, life is super fabulous." And then there's this massive just impact that rocks the whole whaling ship, and they're like, "Oh, what's that?" And they look over, and it's an inflatable dinghy. It's an inflatable dinghy, and it's like Greenpeace or something. I don't even know. What did I call them here? Oh, let's see. But okay, so it's like, so the guys in the little dinghy that are ramming the environmentals. That was it. The environmentals, like they've got mental problems. That was it. There was the damn environmentals. Mean piece. That was it. So it's a small inflatable dinghy ramming the side of the massive whaling ship. Of course, that's like, that's silly, right? That's just stupid right there. So the guys who are like the Greenpeace type guys, they've got like beards and, scraggly beards, long hair, tattoos. They're kind of like your stereotypical like Hell's Angel type looking guys. One guy's named Spider. The other guy's name's Spike. And they're like, "Oh, man." And I even have something in here I wrote. Let's see. Oh, yes. So here's something that I love that we can. So Spike says this: "I love that we can use the environment as a means to fulfill my every ne'er-do-well desire." We're a Spider, and responds to that: "Oh, I know what you mean. I've got to hide my selfish, unbalanced, illogical liberalism behind the banner of environmental activists. It's great." So that was kind of my that was my take. Like I told you, like I said before, it was way over the top. I was going way over the top, right, to the point of just being ridiculous. So then all of a sudden there's this kind of buzzing they hear. They see a water spout off in the distance. Well, it turns out the water spout, the way Some Big Lumberjack gets around on water is he does that like log roll, where they run on the logs. But that's how he gets around in water. And he goes so fast it creates this massive like water spout or whatever. So they're like, "Oh, do you hear that?" And they turn around, and whoosh, Some Big Lumberjack comes around. Their heads get lopped off, and there's the big splash page with Some Big Lumberjack, his chainsaw in his hand, raised in the air in victory. And he says, "Whale on, good citizens, whale on." And then Lance and Julian on the whaler boat just are embracing each other with little hearts around their heads. And they say, "Boy, that's Some Big Lumberjack." And that was how Some Big Lumberjack got his name. That actually came about after we already named him. I did a video on how we came up with his name. In the very first video that I put out, I talked about where the name actually came from. So the name Some Big Lumberjack didn't actually come out of the story. This was a story idea I got, probably 5 years or so after we even came up with the idea for Some Big Lumberjack. But yeah, I don't know how people would react to that these days. That's, I know my buddy, my writing partner, he would probably be pissed if he knew I was reading part of that. But man, we're all too sensitive, dude. Everybody just needs to relax, and we just got to laugh at ourselves. And yeah, I'm just so tired. I'm so tired of all this political. There's just so much bad. But it's both sides, I mean, you can say the left, you can say whatever, but it's on both sides. And I've started to avoid. I don't even go on Twitter hardly anymore because it just. I just don't want to deal with that anymore. I'm so freaking busy. I got so much stuff going on. Ain't nobody got time for that. Anyways, so yeah, you know what? I'm glad I did this. I'm glad I did this live stream. I was hoping to do a live stream with somebody, but they never got back to me. I'd really love to start doing some live stream with other folks. Oh, hey, in a total side note here, I started working on my motorcycle again. I've got a 1977 Yamaha XS 750. I bought it off a guy, and it had been sitting for 24 years, and it's had gas in the tank. And well, what was once gas was now like turpentine or varnish. So I cleaned it out, cleaned out the carbs, and I actually got it started. I couldn't believe it. Man, the thing sounds just badass. Problem is, it'll only start if you give it the filters a shot of starter fluid. So I switched to pods. It was missing the air box, and I switched to pods. I put pods on there, and I heard that you need to put new jets on there if you're switching to pods. So I'm hoping that's the problem. So I bought new jets, some bigger jets. I went up 2 sizes in the jets, especially for the pilot jet, because that's where the gas comes through to start the engine. So I'm excited about that. I got those jets in there. I put the carbs back on. My tank still has a leak in it. I did a red coat, I think is the name of it. I'm not entirely sure. It's this red stuff you can pour inside a gas tank, and it just kind of coats it and seals it and prevents it from leaking. So I'm going to have to do another coat of that in there, because there is one little spot that's still leaking. And once I do that, I'll throw the tank back on, put some gas in, and see if she'll start up on her own. So I'm excited about that. And what else is going on? Of course, I've been, I made those adjustments to my PTR 91, and now I'm really itching to get out to the range again. Never been hunting, never had an opportunity to hunt. I mean, man, like leases are so freaking expensive. I just can't afford to spend that kind of money, man. And the no guarantee, of course, of getting anything. It'd be one thing if I got a lease and I knew for sure I was getting, I would get some meat out of it, but yeah, that's not even the case. Uh-oh, my wife just called me. I'll call her back in a minute. So anyways, man, I'm really glad I did this. I feel like it's kind of pumped me up a little bit after reading that silly little story there, and talking about it again. It's good to talk about it again. I've been so busy with so much other stuff. This was good, man. I'm really glad I did this. So, hey, look, if you like what I'm doing here, if you like the channel, if you like the video content that I've got on there, hit that subscribe button. And, when you hit the subscribe button, don't forget to tap the bell. That'll give you notifications when I post new content. Give us a like on the video, and, put a comment down there. Throw a comment down there and share with your friends. So, hey, thanks for listening, and we'll do this again soon. Y'all have a good one. Bye.